What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today I'm here to talk to you about Arcane Damage. This is one of the 4 magical damage types that exist in Orcs Must Die Unchained, of which there are also 4 characters that are able to use it. Those characters are going to be Gabriella, who's the starting hero, so everybody can get pretty acquainted with her relatively early. Stink Eye, who is sort of a hybrid DPS character, who is a pretty solid boost to any team in almost every situation. Oziel, who is sort of the DPS ace for the arcane damage type overall. You can just dish out a ton of damage relatively easily. And then Zoe, who is the Tetra Elemental of sorts. And all of these characters have access to this damage type, most of them being their primary way of dealing damage. Now, what's special about Arcane Damage is that Arcane Damage adds a debuff that reduces the arcane armor that a hero has. That's not something that is common among anything in the game, like being able to reduce enemy armor. And of everything that has armor reduction, most things require a very special way of actually having that take place. For physical armor, there's a few heroes that have a way to reduce it, and there's also a resonator. However, for arcane, since everything does it, that makes it a much more synergistic damage type than anything else in the game. And if you don't know exactly what synergy is, that just means everything sort of works better together than it does individually. And that's something that's very interesting for team building dynamics as well as trap selection, because unlike things like physical damage or fire damage, where if you were to stack multiple traps on top of each other, they really don't benefit in the same way that arcane damage would. That said, this is a deck that has all of the arcane traps in it, and we also have the Friar Guardian, who blesses characters with arcane damage while they're in combat. So you can get a lot of sources of arcane damage out into combat at once, and this allows you to rack up like some really high damage numbers relatively easily because of it. There are some special cases where certain abilities will increase the armor reduction of arcane damage even further. Those primarily being the Dragon Lance, which is the only arcane ceiling trap at this moment. And that trap will give you a larger boost than any other arcane armor reduction that exists. This is bigger than just about everything other than Gabriella's, only because hers is a special case. Gabriella has a primary attack that reduces arcane armor on each hit, and unlike everyone else, this buff appears to stack multiple times and is pretty much only limited by her attack speed. I believe the natural limit is 5 stacks of arcane armor reduction, and if you get the speed increase, you should be able to get that to 6. However, that is actually one of the biggest points of her character, just that while she doesn't deal a ton of damage on her own, by using arcane traps in combination with her primary attack, you can actually set up heavier enemies to take a ton of damage from the traps around you. And especially if you happen to be able to combine it with the Dragon Lance, which adds another special arcane armor damage debuff, you can really rack up just, again, really high numbers. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't really understand off the bat about arcane traps, just that they really need to be used together. Now, this isn't to say that they shouldn't be able to work very well otherwise, but another feature of arcane traps, I guess, which is part of their design because of the way the armor reduction is sort of built into them, is that in general they will deal a bit less damage than all of their other counterparts. And this is primarily because, again, the idea behind the synergy, but it also has a side effect of making them useful for trying to score some combos on heavier HP enemies, because rather than instantly killing them, they'll deal a smaller amount of damage and basically allow them to run into more traps or hero abilities before they expire. Because of the unique fact that taking more arcane hits increases the damage that enemies take, this actually makes any sort of crowd control abilities much more powerful for arcane traps. And at the same time, a lot of arcane heroes, actually pretty much everybody except for Zoe, has some sort of crowd control ability attached to them. Gabriella has the ability to mesmerize enemies, which is pretty much exclusively an arcane ability in this game at the moment. The Friar has the ability to mesmerize enemies with a spin attack, I believe, and the one of Gabriella's abilities does the same thing, her Devious Allure. Stink Eye doesn't have the ability to do that, but he has one of the hugest and a pretty much permanently active slow in the game. And Aziel also has a built-in slow, as well as the ability to add slows to other facets of himself. So again, there's just a lot of synergist ideas behind this sort of trap type. That said, if you guys have any questions about Arcane Damage specifically, feel free to leave them on this video. I hope that I'm explaining the majority of stuff well here for you. If not, you know, maybe there's something I can clarify in the comments, or maybe I'll just have to redo this video and update it for you guys. But I think that should be pretty good for now. We're going to try to get something like this put together for all of the damage types, just so we can get a quick playlist put together, and you guys will know sort of what all of these can do. Either way, thanks as always for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. And until next time, as always, have a good one, folks.